There's a question that I see asked on social media pretty much about once a day, which is, what is a good lens for portraits? And on average, once out of every time, someone will recommend the Sony 85mm f1.8. And with very good reason. This is arguably one of the best price to performance short telephoto lenses that is currently available for the Sony E-mount. It's priced around £500 UK or $550 US, which makes it considerably cheaper than the likes of the $1,200 Zeiss Batis 1.8 or the $1,800 Sony f1.4 G Master lens. So it's less than half or a third of the prices respectively, and yet offers around 90% of the performance, which is why it is such a popular lens. However, is there a new king to that crown? Yes, Viltrox have been kind enough to send me their 85mm f1.8 in order to do a comparison with. Now this is a full frame lens that's available for Sony E-mount or Fuji X-mount, which is strange because the Fuji X-mount's only APS-C. Now in terms of price, this thing is £320 UK and $320 US. So depending on where you're buying it, it's either 180 or 230 quid cheaper than the true Sony lens. But does it stack up in terms of value for money? Well, the first two things I noticed, firstly, the Viltrox is a slightly larger lens, both in terms of length and width. Whereas the Sony has a 67mm front filter, the Viltrox has a 72, so is slightly larger. They both have max apertures of f1.8, but the Sony can stop down to f22, whereas the Viltrox stops at f16, although most people probably wouldn't even be going down there anyway. The Viltrox also feels a lot sturdier because it's entirely metal construction, whereas the Sony is thin metal on the bottom and plastic up at the top. But that does mean that the Viltrox weighs significantly more. The Viltrox weighing in at 636 grams versus the 371 of the Sony, so is almost double the weight. But in fairness, that extra size and weight, although more noticeable in the Sony, it's not unwielding on the likes of an A7 body. It's definitely not as bad as the old Sigma Art lens that I used to have. Now, while the Viltrox might seem like a sturdier build, it doesn't have any weather sealing in it at all, whereas the Sony has at least some dust and moisture resistance, although Sony do state it's not completely weather sealed, but it will at least give you better protection than nothing at all. It does look pretty sleek on the body, to be fair. I think it matches up with the A7 very nicely. This shiny black metal, there's a very minimalist design to the barrel. The only thing on the barrel is a nifty little red logo, which always makes things look more premium, I find. And a large portion of the barrel is taken up with the manual focus ring. The Sony's manual focus ring, by comparison, is significantly smaller. The lens is also not quite so minimalist because it's got a programmable button and it's got an AF/MF selector switch, which I actually prefer. I'd take function over looks any day, and although the Viltrox looks nice, I much prefer having that selector switch rather than having to go through the menus on the camera when I want to engage manual focus. Now, in terms of the manual focus rings, this is a bit of a mixed bag. The Sony I can easily rotate with just a thumb, no questions asked. But the Viltrox is definitely quite damped. It's really stiff to turn. Now, I found this to be a pain in the arse for stills when I'm trying to rack focus really quickly to catch a subject because it just takes forever to turn it. But with the Sony, it's just a quick flick of the ring. That sounds so wrong. A quick turn of the focus ring and you're from minimum to maximum and back again in no time at all. But the Sony is really difficult to fine tune. But both of these lenses also have autofocus. The Sony has a dual linear autofocus motor, whereas the Viltrox goes with an STM. Now both of these are pretty quiet. The Viltrox has a slight audible noise, but only very, very minute. The Sony is absolutely silent. In terms of autofocus speed and accuracy, however, the Viltrox just falls on its arse at this point. The dual linear AF system in this lens is frankly phenomenal. It's so quick, so precise, it's unbelievable. The Viltrox does an okay job for a £300 lens, but it's just nowhere close to the Sony. The speed is adequate for day-to-day shooting, but don't be trying to photograph anything fast-paced with this. The bigger problem I found, however, is the AF inconsistency. I've especially noticed this in continuous autofocus. You find a subject, and even if the subject is static, you can see the lens hunting back and forth, constantly readjusting itself, whereas with the normal Sony lenses, they'll refocus if the subject moves or you move the focus point, but once it's got lock on a subject, it sticks with it perfectly. Take this picture for example. This I shot the other week when I took the lens out and about for a walk around Norwich. That car's actually parked up static, but this is the third attempt of me trying to take the picture where I'd given up with the autofocus and flicked into manual focus. The first time it focused beyond the car into the middle of nowhere, and the second time it focused about 6 foot short of the car. But every single time, the AF box was right over the car. The Viltrox still works with features like eye autofocus, which is great to see, but the inconsistency of the autofocus just puts me off this so much. For manual focus, the thing is great, so if you're looking for an 85 to use in a manual focus setup, then this could be a good option for you. Although I'm pretty sure Viltrox also do a manual focus version of this lens, so you might as well go with that instead. Now, in terms of image quality, all the pictures you've seen so far I've been taken with the Viltrox lens, and personally I think normal resolution and viewing distances, they all look pretty acceptable. It's only when you compare them up side by side at pixel peeping levels that you really start to notice any difference. And what I found, when shot with the A7 III on a full frame setup, the Sony is consistently sharper at every aperture range. The Viltrox is pretty sharp at the center of the frame, but not quite as sharp as the Sony, but loses a lot of sharpness in the corners, whereas the Sony holds it a little bit better. Both lenses improve sharpness as you stop down, but at no point does the Viltrox even come close to where the Sony is. However, when I compared them up on an APS-C rig with my A6400, I found them to be actually pretty equal. Both lenses at all aperture ranges look fairly similar, both in the center and in the corners as well. Now, in terms of the out of focus renderings, the bokeh, this is again a bit of a mixed bag. I found that the Sony, when shot wide open at f1.8, has quite noticeable cat's eyes all the way around the corners, whereas the Viltrox, they're not completely circular, they are a bit cut off, but they're rounder than what the Sony offers. But as you stop both lenses down, the bokeh style obviously changes. Now, both of these lenses have a 9-blade aperture system, but the Sony runs from cat's eyes to pretty nice circles, whereas the Viltrox has quite jagged edges, and I think that's because the blades on this aren't rounded the same way the Sonys are. So in conclusion, I would say for 300 quid, to be fair, the Viltrox is a really good performing lens. And if you are on a very tight budget, it is well worth a consideration. And while it could arguably be considered as the best budget 85mm, I don't think it is going to take the crown of the best price to performance. Because the Sony, for me, the much faster and more consistent autofocus, the better image quality, and also just the smaller, lighter weight makes it so much easier to carry around. For that extra 20 or 30% price point, for me, is well worth it. But which one would you pick, the Viltrox or the Sony? Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below. While you're down there, if you haven't already, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And there is also a link to my Patreon account where you can support the channel through there and find some exclusive behind the scenes content and exclusive giveaways as well. But thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.